everybody. Welcome back to FEI Freight Executive Insights. I am not the executive with the insights, but I got somebody who has them. And his name's Harman Chima, and he's been around for quite a while. And he's got a trucking company, a logistics company that bears his name. It's not Harman. I'll let you guess what it is. Harman, hey, thanks for coming on the show, brother. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, brother. Awesome, brother. You were traveling for the last couple of weeks trying to make stuff happen, huh?
Yep. Last 3 weeks exactly, but last 2 weeks were all business and visiting lots of different customers. So
Yeah, I mean, and that's a key thing, right? Is keeping those relationships and keeping those moving. And we can talk about that a bit. But first of all, talk about Chima Freightlines. I want you to be able to evangelize what you guys do there, and then we'll get into some insights and topics, right? But tell us about Chima. What do you guys got? You asset based, non asset based, reefers, flatbeds. What are you guys doing there?
yeah, so Chima Freightlines is an asset-based dry van truckload carrier based out of Pacific, Washington. We have a sister company, division, whatever you want to call it, the other side of the room, Chima Logistics, which is our brokerage arm as well, and they're actually growing pretty good. But for the most part, we're truckers first. We started in 2006. We just became adults at 18 years old on April 28th, just a few days ago.
Wow.
So we're very
Wow.
excited about that. It's a good
You can
milestone for
vote,
us.
dude.
Yeah,
You can vote
yeah,
now.
yeah. But we just
Can't
started.
drink
My
yet,
dad
though.
and I. Yeah, my dad and
Can't
I
drink.
started with just one truck, one trailer. I was a sophomore in high school at the time. It was kind of like that owner operator, American dream. Just okay, let's go book our own loads, and all the news we see with AB5 and all that. It's kind of near and dear to my heart a little bit because that's how we started.
Yeah.
And here we are, just almost 500 company trucks. We got some owner operators on top of that. Almost 2,000 dry van trailers operating everywhere west of the Rockies and into Dallas. And then, of course, our brokerage doing just over 50 million in revenue all over the 48 states, actually into Alaska and Hawaii a little bit as well. So all 50 states.
That's tremendous. So, I mean, what did your dad like come home from work one day and say, dude, and you said, like, Dad, where's the caddy? And he said, well, I got a great deal. I traded in on this truck. What do you think? What was the motivation to say, hey, trucking?
Yeah, so my dad's been driving since the early '90s, and
Oh, okay.
he was an owner operator. He was a company driver. Then he bought his own truck. Then he was leased on. This is back before the internet truck stop or DAT and all that was available on your phone so readily, right? And so
Right.
you had to lease your trucks onto some of the bigger carriers or the mid-sized carriers to keep things rolling, which I kind of
Right.
miss sometimes. I like this opportunity, but at the same time, it's a little bit more controlled, right? And we can talk about that a little bit later on how that plays into the market, I think. But that's how it was. And then he decided, hey, we can get our own authority. Your uncle's doing it, and maybe I can make a little bit more money. And really, that's how it started. And he asked me to
Yeah.
book some loads after school, and I was like, sure, I'll give it a shot. I don't have any idea what I'm doing, but you know. And then when I
Yeah.
graduated high school in 2008, we're up to about 13 trucks with a mix of owner operators and company
Oh,
trucks.
wow.
Yeah.
That's fan. So you teenager, you started getting diesel infused into your blood, and it doesn't go away, does it? I mean,
Yeah,
what's
well, I've been
freight?
riding in the jump seat or in the passenger seat since I was a little kid, but actually getting in and trying to figure
Oh,
out how to
okay.
book some loads, yeah, for sure.
I got you. So you grew up on roller dogs and Slurpees and that time.
Oh yeah, yeah. We used to live in
It's funny that
Washington,
you
and
go ahead.
we'd go. He'd bribe us. Hey, if you want to do a ride along with me on Saturday to go deliver a load down to Oregon, and he'd say I'd buy you a Carl's Jr. because there wasn't any in Washington at the time, and so we're like, sweet, let's do it. So
All right, all right. Hey, shout out to Carl's Jr. there, John Brewer. That's awesome. And it's funny that you mentioned, DAT before it was on your phone so readily and stuff like that, because most people don't understand that stands for dial a truck.
yeah,
DAT.
well,
I
hey,
mean,
actually, I should have known that, but I don't. But the DAT memory I have is you go into the truck stop and a bunch of guys waiting around that little television screen up in the corner in the driver's lounge, and it's like the old TV guy just going around with loads. And I used to wonder,
yeah,
what
yeah,
the
yeah,
hell
yeah.
is that? Finally, years later, I connected the dots.
Yeah, it's kind of like someone just scrolling through your TV menu. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's funny. That's awesome stuff, dude. That's really awesome stuff. So, you guys are dry van only? Did you say that? You said that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You guys
Driving
are.
only. We had a little bit of reefers back in the early days. We started with a reefer, but
Yeah.
I like the drive-in business a little bit better, and we got good at it, and figured, hey, we should stay focused and do that better before we try to do something else later. And who knows, down the road we might have
Is
other trailers.
that's a key to success in many areas, right? But then again, though, you've got the logistics on the other side, right? You've got or the non-asset, I should say, right,
Right,
on the
right.
other side. And it was that an add-on for value add, and how does that integrate with what you do there, and how does that benefit your customers?
Well, it was, in 2000, we started in 2006. In 2009, we were doing a good job and we were getting more loads than we can handle. So I would ask some customers, hey, do you mind if I use, partner carrier or another, owner operator or whatnot with their own authority, or they can pull my trailers. And so we got our brokerage authority that way. And it just kind of evolved. And we got real serious about it back in 2014-ish, something like that. And took it
Yeah.
from doing 3-4 million a year to doing close to 30 and then 40 and then 50-ish million. And we've been kind of holding off at that just because of the way the market's been the last couple of years. But, and it became its own business just recently. So last 5 years, I would say.
I got you. So it was a catch-all to just make sure you're servicing the customers, and they knew that, and then it became its own revenue type of stream. Really, a new way to grow that business. That's awesome. How do you find that working out now? I mean, these times here, let's get into insights of what's going on here now, right?
It's definitely a
I
tough
mean,
time.
you're
So,
traveling and visiting customers, right? So there is no matter how successful you are at this moment in time, there's some stress there, right? And I'm
oh, yeah.
sure you visit a lot of customers and stuff like that, but going there and pressing palms together and breaking food and drink is important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We spent the last 2 weeks just out on the road visiting customers. We're doing 3 or 4 customer visits all over the Midwest, Southeast, everywhere. And keep in mind, I'm on the West, but a lot of decision makers are not on the West. So we're
Right.
out there flying around, visiting everybody, making sure we're good, staying in front of them. 3 to 4 visits a day, dinners, and it gets tiring pretty quick, right? Just got
Oh
back
yeah.
late last night, but the nice part about our business is we've got customers in food, beverage, retail, grocery, paper, some medical supplies. So the commodity base, intentionally, I've kept it pretty diverse. So that way
Yeah.
there's a little bit of insulation from sometimes, right, or peaks and valleys and whatnot. But it's slow out there. There's no doubt, right? Volumes are down. Um, it's a supply and demand game, right? When things were great, a lot of truckers got into the market over the last 3 years during the pandemic. They thought $4 a mile was the norm. They could buy a truck
Oh
for
yeah.
250,000 and make it no problem. Buy a trailer for reefers are going for like 125,000 bucks, and I'm just going, oh my god, what are you guys gonna do here when it turns? And it turned. Now they're like, we don't know what to do, right? So just staying disciplined, knowing your cost. That's the biggest thing for us. But overall, I think I'd like to say we're kind of towards the tail end of this. It's a long tail, though, right? Depending on who you talk
Yeah,
to.
it really is, man.
Yeah,
It really is. So you guys, I mean, when you talk about this, I mean, we're in this position right now, right? And I know, I think you and I see eye to eye a bit on why it's here, and it's kind of frustrating, right? And you kind of mentioned it. There's you got all these people that jumped in, right? When in this, I call it irresponsible growth. I mean, there was this money grab that occurred, right? And we had to have additional capacity, et cetera, come in order to help with what was going on. Obviously, I mean, we all
absolutely.
lived through what happened, but I mean, I think a lot of people, and I would argue that not a whole lot of capacity actually came into the market. Hence, the prices still stayed really high. Because you take one driver from Chima. Let's say during that time you got one of your drivers left and started his own authority, right? Now you've got two authorities, and people go, "Oh, look, we just doubled the capacity." No, you didn't.
Right.
Capacity didn't change at all. You just have one truck that's operating under this authority instead of one of 300 or whatever at Chima, right? I mean, I'm using Chima as just generic truckload, right? But now you've got this position where there's all these people out there with this equipment that they're just paying uh, interest notes on, right?
Or not. I've talked to a lot of bankers that are, they're making deals or they're deferring loans, or the banks can't control it. What are they going to do with all this equipment coming back, right?
Yeah,
So,
they don't want to own that equipment, and they made bad notes, right? They wrote bad
right.
debt.
Everybody was it was bad for everybody, not just trucking, bankers, the whole industry, not just the industry, but the entire economy, right? So we all did it to
Oh yeah, heck
ourselves
yeah.
in
I
a way,
mean, the whole economy. You're right. The whole. Well, I
right?
mean, trucking is the economy. And I mean, throughout my career for 36 years, I'd be able to tell, hey, the economy's turning. And I'd be like, how do you know this? Well, I'm in trucking, and I understand the fact that it is an indicator of what's going on,
Yeah,
right?
but I always like to mention that, before pandemic, Chima, we had almost about 100 owner operators that were pulling our trailers, exclusively working for us all the time. And during that peak of the crazy rate period, we were down to about 35 or 40. Now we're back up to we're keeping it about that just because there's just from a work standpoint. But
Yeah.
what I'd like to say is those 50 or 60 drivers that left and decided they're going to start their, whether they're leased on or not, get their own authority. So those are now additional carriers technically from a reporting standpoint, right?
Right.
But those are additional 50 phone calls a broker like us or another shipper or another broker are getting now versus Chima was calling in and saying, hey, I got 10 trucks tomorrow. Now I got 3 trucks tomorrow, and 7 other guys are calling in as well. Well, guess what? The phones are lighting up at the brokerages, and guess what? The rates are going down because they don't need to cover with me. They got 7 other guys on the call, even though it was all the same capacity at some point, right?
So you're the same capacity is now cannibalizing itself.
Yeah, and
I
how
mean,
many more RFPs and how many and brokers too, right? How many new brokerages are out there? At the end of the day, these beasts that we built, right? And
yeah.
thank God to the Chicago style and everybody who built that. I think it's a great model. The buy sell, all those are great and great for just new people coming into the industry and make some money and get involved, of course. But at the same time, if there's 300 carriers bidding and brokers bidding on the same RFP with the same lanes that there was 100 before, they're all going to try to they're all going to try to get a little piece of it and drive that rate down, right? So that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the most desperate in the room sets the price all over again, but on steroids, really. And
Right.
we always complained about that. That's always been the issue and a thing that you fight against and have your whole life. And even your father did when you were riding around, waiting for that Carl's Jr. He was dealing with those pressures, right? And we
Right.
still are, and it's even worse. We've learned almost nothing in this business. It seems like to counteract that. It's all gone away because now all these people with these huge debts and so on and so forth are running around there, and you've got the most desperate. We used to say the stupidest in the room or the most ignorant in the room, but that's not really the truth. It's really the most desperate in the room that's setting the price, is what
Yeah,
it is.
absolutely. And guess what? Shippers know, hey, I'll probably keep 60 or 50% of this business with the people I know and the asset-based drivers, the asset-based providers, and make sure it delivers on time. But this other 40%, I'll go ahead and do a coin toss. But hey, are the savings worth more than the service at that point? They're kind of going through those battles now. And the conversations we're
Yeah,
having again are preparing for that next where they want to go back to that 80% asset and maybe 20% spot brokerage and just convert that extra 30% or 20% that they're riding out on the spot, doing some savings right now because they know it's going to turn. And when it does, they want providers like us and just good providers that have their own fleet from a control
yeah.
standpoint, right?
So they're keeping you happy, but then they're hedging or whatever, and they're putting this other stuff. Do you think that percentage is greater now, just because like the ability of even your own logistics company, the services are better than they used to be? I mean, it used to be that those smaller guys were in the grease quickly, right?
Yeah.
But
Well,
now it seems like, or maybe it's not true. I don't know. I'm asking you your perspective and your insight. Is that drop off of capacity? It's obviously not going away fast enough because you're talking about depressed rates and a long tail, right? And a bunch of that's got to be just the ability for those small guys to hang around. One of it is the banks aren't calling in the notes, I'm sure, but the others got to be, they the shippers are more comfortable with those smaller carriers than they used to be, right? Maybe they're not totally, but the service is fairly decent. Is that fair
yeah,
to
I don't
say?
think a lot of shippers are engaging directly with a lot of small carriers, but they're using the brokerages to do that.
Right, that's what I mean. Through
Right.
the brokerage service has become so much better now and so much more trusted that it's given those smaller guys the ability to hang on longer. Yeah, is
Yeah.
that a
Well,
thing?
when
You
it
think?
was tight, it was tight. We had all these brokerages starting to buy trailers or lease trailers and try to figure things out. And some of the big guys just down the street from us in Seattle, right? We're trying to pitch that new model, and shippers were listening because they just wanted to get their freight to market. And now it's like you got a power only program. Cool story, dude. What's your rate, right? Who cares? It's kind of that. But now we're starting to see them just between last year and this year. I can tell you that last year was a little bit more like got to drive price, got to drive price. Upper brass is telling me cost, cost, cost. And I get it. They paid a lot. They blew through budgets, right? I understand that. And we've got
Yeah,
great partners and we got transactional partners, right? And those are the conversations are different with who you're working with. But at the same time, even those great partners, still are given a little bit more allocation of that transactional business to get some more savings right now. But the conversations we're having today and over the last couple of weeks, I can tell you, is it's more of the, hey, how can we do a little bit more for you, or get ready for when we're going to need you, because they see that tail might be starting to squeeze, right? And it's coming. And so,
Ah,
which is a good sign.
yeah,
I think that's the first sign. And at the end of the day, we're all guessing. We're all humans, right? We're all trying to do these
sure.
jobs and keep rocking and rolling here. But I think, I hope, I'm optimistic that some point this year it's going to start to feel like we're towards the end, but I don't see anything turning around until early to mid next year. And from a turnaround, it's going to be a slow turnaround because there's still a lot
Yeah.
of capacity, and if the banks aren't making, the banks aren't pulling trucks back right now because they don't know what to do with them. Well, that's what's keeping some of these people alive right now, and maybe
Yeah, it is. They're
keeping those
paid. They
rates
got
low,
free assets, basically, right?
right?
They got free
I
assets.
I know a number of guys who tell me that that's what they're doing. They're just making no payments, and just, they'll take the cheaper loads right now and just keep moving because they don't have to make a truck or trailer payment, and we'll figure it out later. Worst mentality, but truckers unfortunately do it a lot.
Yeah,
So
yeah, well, yeah. We talked about that too. I mean, it's every year winter comes and everybody forgets that it's coming. But as soon as January hits, they'll go, "Where's the freight?"
right,
Check your calendar. It happens every year. Every year that goes on, and I'll tell you what. Everybody I talk to is in a very very similar mindset as you are as to where the market is and how long it's going to take and what's moving on there. So I think that's what it is, and I'll tell you what, it is really good to hear that the shippers are starting to consider what's going to happen when this trough starts to turn into a peak, right? When it starts coming back up, that means that they're seeing something. They're seeing something in their data somewhere in their forecasting. Their prognosticators are saying, okay. Let me ask you this: do you think that, and is there a way to prevent that the part of these lower costs are the backlashes that happen from the transportation costs that went so high, skyrocketed so high?
yeah, I mean, it's like, well, it was here, now it's like, get all the money we can back, right? And that's coming right
Yeah,
from the big
exactly. But
CEOs.
how do you smooth that curve? Is it a curve that can ever be smooth? Because these cycles have been happening forever.
Well, I
Well,
know.
not forever. I came into the industry right after deregulation. That's when it started.
Yeah, and I started 18 years ago, and I've seen this a few times now, and
Yeah.
we're a lot smaller, and even, knock on wood, we're a lot more disciplined this time too, so we're able to weather it out pretty, just fine. But it doesn't mean we're making money or running at cost on some, or we're just barely breaking even, right? The conversations of, hey, we want to make X percentage this year, or the conversations are more like, hey, can we just break even on the truck side this year? How do we do that, right? So.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I don't know. I hope we can find that medium and do that. And I think some companies are trying to disrupt and find that, but it's very tough because and I've been all the comments right now. It's amazing. It's kind of, I chuckle at them when companies are going out. Not chuckling at the companies going out, but chuckling at the comments of saying, "What driver shortage? Tell me there's another driver shortage." And I'm like, man, you guys, I've seen both sides, right?
Yeah,
And it's I don't know. I think we got the longest memories and the shortest memories in the business, and we all do it to
100%.
ourselves.
100%. And the low barrier to entry is a great thing, but it also hurts
Yeah,
because I mean, that's part of it too. I mean, you mentioned, you can pick up a truck and get an authority and start rocking and rolling and not really know what you're doing, and you know, accidentally survive like during COVID, a lot did. And then the issue with the banks, you're still surviving, and it's really dumb luck kind of
yeah,
thing.
but
But
I think it's going to
but it
get harder.
messes with the rates, dude. It messes
Yeah,
with the rates.
it's going to get harder for sure. As like, so we do a lot of business in California, right? No surprise there.
Yeah,
But with electrification and carb and clean trucking acts and whatnot, it's going to get harder if they stay on track. Which I don't have any faith they'll stay on track either. But just like the shippers last year, I was kind of like, okay, whatever, we'll see what happens. This year, I'm more like, okay, I better start putting an ear out there with our size of a fleet to figure out what we need to do to at least get our toes wet and see if they pull back, or if they're not pulling back, then we got to keep going, right? Because we can't afford to not do business in the biggest population on the West. or in the
Yeah,
world.
absolutely. So you've got to keep an eye on what's going on with CARB, right? I mean,
Right.
they command that type of economy out there, and they can lock it out for you through regulations, through
Yep.
sustainability regulations, et cetera. That's an interesting point of view. So you just kind of sit it out and kind of wait to see what's there. And the thing is, I read all the things that come out from CARB, and it's really difficult to figure out what it says.
Oh,
I mean,
we
you can
thought
almost
about,
argue it two different ways.
yeah, at our size, we thought about hiring somebody just to figure out sustainability and working with our customers to figure out what their goals are, what they're pressured to
Yeah,
do, and how we can work together to, check some of the box. All we're doing is checking boxes here, right? At this point.
right, right. Yeah, and it gets difficult sometimes. Oh man.
Right.
Well, listen, Harman, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I promised you about 20 minutes, and you gave it to me, and I really, really appreciate that. Is there anything you want to just leave everybody with, or at least how do they get in touch with you to give them a ton of freight? Because my phone's lighting up right now, going, where do we book him? How do we get the freight? How do we
WTF?
get?
Where's the freight? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Check me out on LinkedIn. Check out ChimaFreightlines.com or TeamChima.com or ChimaLogistics.com for our brokerage side. But I would just say to all my trucking brothers and brokerage brothers and sisters out there, just be disciplined, and focus on the long game here. And all the truckers, don't do loads that you're not making any money on, and that's the only way we're going to correct this market. Because guess what? Those new brokerages, even some of our guys included, I'll be 100% transparent on that, will bid freight based on the rate they can get the truck for. And sometimes I'm like, what? How the hell did you do that? I can't even move that on my truck. But we're all doing it to ourselves. So the only way we're going to get this correction, one, we got to get the suppliers to reduce their costs from a trucking and equipment standpoint, or which I don't think that's going to happen with inflation and whatnot. So we got to get the rates up and the wages up to where they need to be. And it's just the same cycle. We'll make a little bit more, pay a little bit more. End of the day, we're all here at the same place, right? So
That's excellent stuff, brother. Listen, everybody, check out FEI next time. I appreciate you guys watching this time, and we'll be back with another episode soon, my brother.